Let's review scatter plots for a minute. First of all, you're going to be looking at the relationship between two quantitative variables. Those were those numerical ones. You're not going to be comparing categorical variables like what's your favorite color, things like that in a scatter plot. They have to be numbers for the x and for the y. And speaking of x and y, when we were doing our scatter plots, sometimes we ended up with them backwards. And it actually is going to make a difference at this point because we're going to be doing a line of best fit. So x has to be the explanatory variable. And you may have called it the independent variable before. And y would be considered the response variable, which you probably called the dependent variable before. And the idea behind it is that x predicts what happens with y. We don't want to use the word causes. Or causation. It's x predicts y in a scatter plot. We were talking about it before. We were talking about the key things to examine in a scatter plot. And they are the direction. Is it rising from left to right, which would mean it would be a positive relationship? Is it falling? That would mean it would be a negative relationship. Form. A few people were asking again about form. Form is, does it form a line? Is it linear or is it curved? And strength is a big one. And we use this correlation variable, which was R. And for strength, we used words like strongly, for strongly positive, or moderate, for moderately positive, weak, for weakly positive, or they could also work for negative. It's strongly negative, or it's moderately negative, or it's weakly negative. And these numbers for R were always between -1 and +1. And the way they would look is, let's say for +1, they would look almost like a straight line. I mean, in real life, you would never have it where it would be perfectly 1. You might get 0.99, something like that. But towards the +1 scale is where it would look strongly like it's pointing upward. And strongly meaning it looks strong like a line, strongly linear. Negative would be where it's looking very strongly downward of a line falling downward. 0 would be the kind that really doesn't look like there's any correlation at all, positive nor negative. And in here is where you would find like weakly negative, moderate, and the same thing, positive. This would be where you're weak. It would be like a weak correlation. Look like it's positive, but very weakly looking like it's positive, and then getting more moderate and getting to the point where it's a strong relationship between them. And that can go negative as well. And we also talked about using the calculator to find the R value. And then sometimes when you look at the R value and you say, okay, it's 0.99, well, that's pretty darn close to 1, so it's quite strong. And if you get something that's closer to 0, like 0.2, you know that's more of a weak relationship between the two.